The physical release of my webcomic Unfamiliar is out in bookstores now. Check out the link below. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And today I'm going to be talking about Velma, which is a critically reviled Scooby Doo spinoff that just came out on HBO Max. Now, a lot of people are already talking about it. It's the third least popular TV show in IMDb history. It's obviously incredibly easy to just make fun of how bad this is, but just like I did with the edgy Powerpuff Girls reboot that is still yet to come out, I'm going to try to approach this from a character design and writing perspective to see if this premise is even fixable. So the premise for this Velma show is that they wanted to create a dark, adult version of Scooby Doo, which I already take some issue with. Problem one is that originally Scooby Doo already had kind of an all ages audience. There were already jokes and things slipped in for teens and adults who were watching from the very beginning, so it seems like a weird IP to give this treatment to. Secondly, I think that if you watch Velma and you ignore the fact that there's a lot of cursing and violence, you'll discover that actually the jokes are still incredibly juvenile, so it doesn't really feel adult. The first step for me was determining the characters' ages. Now, in the HBO Velma, they are in high school. In my version, they would be in college. I think that if you're going to make a show for adults, I think it's better for them to be a little bit older. They can still seem pretty young and still have a lot of growing up to do, but when you put them in college, it gives them a lot more freedom, and it gives you as a writer a lot more freedom because you don't have to worry about their parents necessarily and stuff. You know, they're kind of striking out on their own and becoming, the person that they'll end up being. And I thought that Velma is, because she is originally a very brainy and analytical character, I thought it would be cool for her to be a law student. She's, studying something pretty difficult. She's a serious academic girl. And the thing that I really like about Velma in the original show and many of the spin-offs of Scooby Doo is that while she is book smart and not super interested in beauty and stuff, they don't usually make fun of her for being a loser the way that they do in Velma. Velma as a show is pretty bizarre because it's obviously supposed to be modern, but the dynamics of the characters and the character types feel very much like an 80s high school. It's cliques of popular girls, and then the bookish girl is a loser and people make fun of her for being fat, and it's just it's very 80s to me. It feels extremely retro in the way that the characters are written. And then of course there's this ultra famous Me Too joke that they put in, which it barely even reads as a joke. It's just horrible. And I thought it was so weird because I was I just can't picture a modern day teenager, a Gen Z girly, saying this. It sounds like something a jaded old man who works in comedy would say. And then I remembered that this is the writer, and I'm oh, right. So as they obnoxiously self-referenced in the first scene of Velma, this show is being done with race-blind casting, which I actually generally think is a pretty good idea when you're adapting an older IP that's supposed to be in the modern day. Breaking up an all-white cast, or what appears to be an all-white cast, is usually a good idea. Now, the way that they let us know that Daphne is Asian in the Velma show is by having her say, "as an Asian woman," as one of the first lines that she says in the show. I think instead of doing that, I'd probably just give Velma a Korean surname of some kind and let the audience put the pieces together themselves. Now, in my pitch for this modernized adult Scooby-Doo, Daphne and Velma are the two most important characters. Daphne is a true crime girl. Now, I think that if you're going to modernize Scooby-Doo and make a story about young people who are trying to solve crimes on their own, how could none of them be interested in true crime? It just doesn't make any sense. I really like the idea of her podcast being specifically about looking into missing people who aren't getting enough attention. There is a real life problem of both authorities and online communities paying more attention and putting more resources into looking for and resolving crimes that happen to wealthier, whiter people. And that's been a problem for a long time. So I thought it would be kind of cool to give Daphne some kind of cause or something that she really cares about, and have that be sort of the premise of her podcast. I even thought of a name. It could be called Not Forgotten, Gone But Not Forgotten. And she just looks into missing persons cases. And I thought that this would be a great way for the whole gang to find a case that they want to solve themselves, a mystery, So I thought that this whole premise is very modern. It's very connected to real things, and it makes for sort of a seamless way for all of these young people to get really into trying to resolve mysteries and crimes on their own. And I thought that it would be really fun if she was trying to get Velma to join her podcast, because Velma is a law student and like studying criminology, and so she wants that like level of research and like book smartness that Velma would bring, but maybe Velma doesn't respect like the true crime communities and everything because she's a bit more serious and like she's in on the legal side, so she probably looks down on all of this stuff. So that would give them some like friction points and things to work out together, and then they could of course form an unlikely duo, and eventually the gang would come together. Now Daphne and Velma in the Velma show like hate each other at the start of it. It's clear that they were best friends. They show it with a best friends locket because the show has no ideas. And now Daphne is like a drug dealer, and she's saving up money to try to find her biological parents because she's adopted. And I don't know, it's just like one of the first things we see her doing is like smashing a girl's face into the shower floor for absolutely no reason. I think that them making the characters look different is not a big deal, but making their personalities completely divorced from who they are in Scooby Doo makes no sense. Daphne in the original show is a pragmatic, stylish, and fun person, and there's no remnants of the characters' souls in this Velma show. Like they're completely different people. So now we got to talk about Shaggy and Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo obviously is the title character of the original IP, but he does not exist in the Velma show. I'm guessing that they thought it was too lame to have a talking dog in their very cool, very edgy adult show. I think that that's absolute coward behavior. The show I'm pitching is much more dramatic and serious than Velma, and I'm going to find a way to put Scooby in there. So I thought one realistic sort of pragmatic way to have Scooby always be with the gang and be able to get in wherever they are is by having Scooby be a service dog. And I also thought that would give interesting dimension to Shaggy as a character, because in the original IP, he is generally maybe one of the more simple characters. He's pretty much just food motivated and extremely laid back. There's a lot of jokes about him being like a stoner because he kind of has that like white stoner boy voice, and he loves food and is just extremely sort of dazed all the time. So I thought it'd be fun to give him like another character trait. So I thought it would be really awesome if he is like partially blind, and that's why Scooby is always with him, is seeing eye dog. And I also like the idea that Scooby and him, because they spent so much time together, they have this really special bond. And so while he doesn't literally talk, they can totally understand each other, and Scooby can help like sniff out actual clues and stuff, because he's a dog and everything. And I just thought it would be really cool and interesting to have him sort of serving this purpose, and have him not literally talking, but basically being able to be just as involved in the story because Shaggy's connection with him is so good. In the Velma show, Shaggy doesn't exist. Instead, they replaced him with a character called Norville, which supposedly is Shaggy's like real name, but I've never ever heard that in any of the actual show, so this is a Wikipedia fact for you, but I guess that's where they came up with the name Norville. He has 0 of Shaggy's character traits, and he basically is just wearing Shaggy's outfit. None of the characters really embody anything to do with the Scooby Doo characters, and I think that that's the main issue here. I think the reason that Velma is so widely hated is because it's so insincere. It's clearly a show that was written by somebody who did not like the original IP that it was based on. He didn't like the direction that they had to go with the the changes, and so it just feels like a show that's like full of hate. Like, how like a baked good can be made with love, like this show feels like it's made with hate. So Fred was actually my second most hated change that they made in Velma. Again, this feels like massive backtracking. Like, when you watch Velma and then you watch original Scooby Doo feels like it deserves like a Pulitzer Prize or something for the writing. Like, the characters are just so much less like stereotypical, even though it's so old. Like it's just, you know, Fred is like he's like a proto himbo. He's a trendsetter. He came before so that others could walk in his shadow. Like it's just it just makes no sense to turn him into what they turned him into in Velma. And again, it feels like someone who's being held at gunpoint and being forced to make a show that's like quote unquote woke against their will. Like that's what it feels like to me. So Fred is supposed to represent like the, like, I don't know, like the most entitled, like rich white guy that you can imagine, but they take it so far that he's like literally baby talking. He can't eat he can't eat food without someone cutting it up for him and stuff, which like I guess like on paper you could see how that could be funny, but in the show it's just him like literally baby talking and being like, I need bathies, I need cutties, cut up my food for me, I'm all sticky. Like it's torture. Like it's so profoundly unfunny. Anyway, oh my god. So my version of Fred, I would have him have a similar personality to the one that he has in the original. I might even play it up a little bit more, especially because the age of the himbo still, reigns over us. So I think that it would feel very modern. With an ensemble cast, it's important to think about how the characters are going to balance each other. And because I have Daphne being a little bit more intense because she has like a cause, and Velma being a little intense because she's like a serious law school student, I think that having the boys be more laid back and fun and optimistic could be a good way to balance everything out. And it is kind of the way that the thing was structured originally. So I definitely think we don't have to necessarily lose that. I like the idea of keeping his clothes almost identical to the way that they were originally, and because I imagine him as a fashion student and classmate with Daphne, which would explain why they have very similar sort of like clothing aesthetics with these sort of ascot like ribbons around their necks. I really like the idea that they are like making retro fashion together, and they probably go like vintage shopping. I picture him being really into like reality TV for some reason, and I like the idea also that he's like a super nice gregarious person, but also like extremely tall, like a sort of gentle giant kind of thing. So now that I have them all redesigned, I'm going to draw them all together in this quick little sketch and talk about the main plot lines that I would have and the differences that I would make from the Velma show. So first off, it's called the Mystery Machine, not the horrible meta jokes machine. So I think that we're going to have to make a mystery at the core of the show. Now, since you want to make it for adults and you want it to be more dark and dramatic and serious, I think that we should have it be a multi-episode mystery rather than the episodic sort of style that the original Scooby Doo is working with. And I think that the way that I would start it is, of course, having Daphne discover when she's researching for her podcast that there's a missing person from their actual town. So she decides that she's going to take it on herself to try to solve it. This causes her to reach out to Velma. Velma is obviously studying criminology, and so she would be very useful, and she has like more of like the legal aspect figured out. She's resistant at first, but they end up becoming fast friends, and she begrudgingly agrees to help with this mission, even though she does not like podcasts and influencer stuff, and so she works sort of in the background of the podcast, but does not want her voice on it at all. Then Daphne ends up involving Fred because they're classmates and best friends, and he starts just wanting to help basically. So that's how he joins the team. And then the three of them end up stumbling upon Shaggy and Scoob at a critical scene where they discover one of the first clues that the police never found for this missing person, because Scooby actually sniffs it out. And this is how the gang comes together and they start trying to solve this mystery. Now, I love the idea of actually having them have to solve something kind of serious, and I think that it could be really fun and feel a little bit fresh. Scooby-Doo has been redone so many times. It is a beloved IP because you can kind of keep doing it over and over. There's been so many versions, so I think that this, if you were going to make it dark and edgy and for adults, this is like the direction to go in. Like, give it a dramatic Scooby-Doo about a serious crime. And then that could be fun. And then because the main plot is dark, then you can have fun with the gang and you don't have to come up with all these stupid reasons why they hate each other and why they're fighting all the time. Like, you can have the gang be united against this dark situation. I think that would be really fun. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I really, really, really love Scooby Doo. I had a Scooby Doo pencil case throughout the entirety of elementary school, so I'm like kind of passionate about the IP, I guess. At least I didn't put Scrappy Doo and Velma, you know, at least we can thank them for that. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and don't watch Velma, because hate watching makes things popular. So yeah, just give it a good old skip, I would say. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Ventali, Sniper, JP25, Lucy Amajiki, Heartless Doll, Finmus Die, Aries Chaos, Live, Salty Jackrabbit, Noose Milk, Ravens Crow, Zosalot, Tea Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Gender Was Stolen, Kay, Moo Milk, Kadaria, Deadly Nightshade Art, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Michael Lavalley, Cutie Pie, Rune Rain Crow, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, JJ Jade, and of course, blah 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 blah.